Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today, we're really going kind of out there. We're diving into a book called Out of This World by Neville Goddard. And this one really gets you thinking about how much power your imagination has.
Yeah, it's
over your life.
It's funny because a lot of these kind of new thought books and authors, they just present these kind of abstract ideas, but Goddard actually gives you a practical approach to using them.
Yeah, he doesn't waste any time either. Right away in the book, he just throws out this idea that our lives here, on Earth are basically just following a plan that already exists in another dimension, kind of like a blueprint, slowly moving through our 3D world. So to us, it just looks like everything is predetermined.
Right. And that makes me think about, have you ever had one of those moments where you're just like,
oh, I knew that was going to happen.
I knew that was going to happen. Yeah. So Goddard would say that's us getting a little glimpse into this bigger plan.
Exactly. And he even goes on to say that our assumptions play a huge role in this. Regardless of if they're true or not, they actually become like the building blocks of our reality.
Yeah, he calls it assumptions hardening into facts.
So let's say you wake up and just think, this is going to be a bad day.
Oh, yeah.
You spill your coffee, hit every red light on the way to work. Suddenly that initial assumption it just starts to feel like an unavoidable reality.
Exactly. Even if that thought wasn't based on anything real, it still set the stage for the rest of your day.
And this is where things start to get a little tricky for me, I got to admit. Goddard talks a lot about a dimensionally larger world, like a 4D world.
Yeah.
Honestly, I had to read that section a few times to wrap my head around it.
Yeah, the fourth dimension that he's referring to is time. But he doesn't see time as a straight line, past, present, future. He sees it as like a medium for change, something we can move through, like we move through space.
So if we could somehow shift our position within this dimension of time, we could actually influence the future.
That's exactly what he's suggesting. We can tap into this 4D world through our consciousness and rewrite our lives. He compares it to like a film reel where every possibility already exists and we have the power to choose which frames we bring into reality.
Okay. And the method he gives for doing this is what he calls controlled waking dreams. It sounds kind of like a paradox, but it's basically a very specific visualization technique. Right?
Exactly. It's a 3-step process. So first, you define your objective. What is it that you want to change? Then you have to construct an event in your mind that implies that it's already happened. But it has to be super vivid, you can actually feel it.
Okay. So if I wanted to be a more confident public speaker,
right,
I wouldn't just picture myself being good at it. I would have to create this whole scene where I'm giving the presentation, feeling the energy of the audience, hearing my voice, seeing people nodding along.
Yes. You're not just watching it happen. You're in it.
I like that.
Feeling it, experiencing it as if it's happening right now.
So it's not enough to just imagine winning the lottery. I'd have to imagine myself buying the ticket, waiting for the numbers, feeling that rush when I realize I won.
Exactly. You have to participate in the scene, not just passively hope.
So we're essentially taking action in our minds.
Yes. And here's the key. You have to repeat this scene over and over. Immerse yourself in the feelings until it feels as real as a memory.
It's like method acting, but for your subconscious mind.
I love that analogy, because that's really what it is.
You're embodying that feeling, that state of being, until your mind can't tell the difference between that and an actual memory.
And that's where that 4D world comes back into play.
Okay.
Because Goddard believes when you do that, when you experience something with that level of vividness and feeling, you're not just pretending. You're actually creating a reality in that other dimension. And that dimension is constantly influencing our 3D world.
So what we create in our minds eventually manifests in our physical experience.
And he argues that there's no lag time between the intention and the manifestation in that dimension.
So it's instantaneous.
Yeah, it really is. What we assume to be true instantly becomes a reality in that 4D world.
Okay, so just to clarify.
Yeah.
By constantly replaying that scene in our minds, we're programming our subconscious to accept that reality as true.
Exactly. It's like planting a seed in your subconscious and then watering it with focus and feeling.
Wow. Okay. This is already blowing my mind. But we've only scratched the surface here. We still have to get into how to actually apply all of this, how to overcome those doubts and fears that pop up.
Yeah.
But we'll save that for the next part of our deep dive into Out of This World. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we've talked about this whole other dimension, the power of our assumptions. We've even touched on this idea of like a higher self. But how do we actually bridge the gap between where we are now and where we want to be?
Well, Goddard gives us a very specific tool for this, and it's called controlled waking dreams.
It's about consciously directing your imagination while you're still awake.
Yeah. He really emphasizes finding a state that's close to sleep, but not quite. Like a drowsy, relaxed feeling, but where your mind is still alert. And he even suggests, like lying down or sitting comfortably in a chair to help you get into that state.
So it's almost like lucid dreaming, but you're awake.
Exactly.
Okay, so what then? We just lay there and daydream about our perfect life.
Well, not quite. It's more focused than that. Remember the 3 steps we talked about? First, you have to define your objective.
Right.
Like, what specifically do you want to change? Then you construct a scene in your mind that implies that desire has already been fulfilled. It has to be super vivid, like you can actually feel it with your senses.
Okay, so if, like, my objective is to be more confident speaking in public,
right,
I wouldn't just imagine myself as a great speaker. I'd have to create this whole scene where I'm actually giving a presentation. I'm feeling the energy of the audience, hearing my voice, seeing people nodding along.
Yes. You're not just watching it, you're actually in it. You're feeling the emotions, sensing the environment, like it's really happening in that moment.
Okay, I like that. So it's not enough to just imagine winning the lottery. I would actually have to imagine buying the ticket, waiting for the numbers to be called, feeling that excitement when I realize I've won.
Exactly. It's about actively participating in the scene, not just passively hoping.
So we're taking action, but it's all in our minds.
Yeah. And here's the key. You have to repeat this scene over and over again. You really immerse yourself in the feelings until it feels as real as an actual memory.
So it's like method acting. But like you said, for your subconscious mind,
right,
it's like you're embodying that feeling, that state of being, until your mind literally can't tell the difference between that and something that actually happened.
Exactly. And that's where that idea of the 4-dimensional world comes back in. Because Goddard says when you experience something with that level of vividness, that much feeling, you're not just pretending, you're actually creating a reality in that other dimension. And because that dimension is constantly influencing our 3-dimensional world,
it eventually shows up in our physical experience.
Yes.
Okay, so to make sure I'm getting this,
yeah,
by consistently revisiting that scene in our minds, we're basically programming our subconscious mind to accept that reality is true.
Exactly. You're planting a seed in your subconscious and then nurturing it with focus and feeling.
Wow, this is incredible. But what about like doubts and anxieties, like that little voice that pops up and says, this will never work, or I'm not good enough?
Right.
Like, how do we deal with that?
Well, Goddard says those thoughts are totally natural, but we can't give them power. He really stresses the importance of controlling where we focus our attention. So whenever a negative thought comes up, you just gently redirect your attention back to the feeling of your wish fulfilled.
So it's kind of like training a puppy.
Yeah.
Every time it wanders off, you gently guide it back to its bed.
I love that. That's a perfect analogy.
And Goddard even suggests using a simple phrase or like a mantra to help anchor your attention. Something like just saying thank you with a feeling of gratitude, as if that desire is already a done deal.
Right, because it is in that other dimension.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like you're affirming that reality in the 4-dimensional world.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're essentially using our imagination to rewrite the script of our lives.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
And it all starts by shifting our awareness, our consciousness to this other dimension where anything is possible.
Yeah, and where we're already everything we want to be.
All right, so we're back, and, we've unpacked a ton about Out of This World by Neville Goddard, like this idea of a 4-dimensional reality and the power of our assumptions. We even got into that whole dimensionally great one concept. But I think the big question is, how do we actually apply this stuff? How do we actually become the conscious creators that Goddard's talking about?
Well, he makes it very clear that the only real change happens internally. There's no magic formula, no outside force that can change our lives for us. It all begins and ends with our consciousness.
And he uses that phrase, no one to change but self, which is such a powerful idea because we're so used to looking outside of ourselves for solutions, looking for someone or something to fix our problems.
Right. He's saying we have to flip the script. The power is in our own minds.
Okay, so we've talked about changing our assumptions.
Yeah.
But how do we actually do that? Like our beliefs and perceptions just feel so ingrained, so much a part of who we are.
Well, God would say they're not as fixed as we think. Remember, the dimensionally great one, that higher self, already exists in that 4D world. It's the you who already has everything you want, who embodies all the qualities you desire.
So it's not about becoming something new. It's about remembering who we truly are.
Exactly. And he gives us a really powerful technique to do this called identification. It's about consciously choosing to identify with that higher self, to assume the feeling of being the person you want to be.
So instead of saying, I want to be more confident, I should be saying, I am confident.
It's more than just saying it. It's about feeling it, embodying it. Imagine yourself acting confidently, speaking confidently, like feel the energy of confidence flowing through you.
It's like stepping into a role, like an actor putting on a costume. But in this case, we're putting on the costume of our highest self.
Exactly. And by consistently embodying that feeling, that state of being, you start to align yourself with the reality that you want to create.
You know, he even tells this amazing story in the book about healing a bunch of people just by meditating on the concept of perfection. And it's like by identifying with his higher self, he was able to tap into this source of unlimited potential.
And it makes you wonder what we're all capable of if we could really fully embrace the power of our own consciousness. And Goddard believed that our imagination is the key to unlocking that potential.
Yeah. He even says desire and imagination are the enchanter's wand of fable, which sounds kind of like magic, but I don't think he's talking about waving a wand and wishing for things to magically appear.
Right. It's about using our imagination in a much deeper way as a creative force to shape our reality. He really stresses being conscious about where we direct our imagination. What are we focused on creating?
And that goes back to those controlled waking dreams that we talked about earlier. By consistently visualizing ourselves living the reality we want, we're essentially programming our subconscious mind to accept that reality is true.
Yes. And he also warns against dwelling on negative thoughts and fears because our imagination is constantly working, whether we're aware of it or not. So it's shaping our reality either way. So we have to choose those thoughts carefully and try to focus on the things that uplift us.
So cultivate a mental atmosphere of joy and gratitude.
Exactly. It's not just about getting what we want. It's about aligning with a higher vibration.
And he even suggests, focusing on the good of others, dwelling on love and joy and abundance for others, because he believes that can actually raise our own consciousness and create positive change in the world around us.
Right, like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
You send out positive energy and not only transform your own life, but contribute to a more harmonious and fulfilling world for everyone.
It's really a beautiful idea when you think about it. And, at the end of the day, Goddard's work is a message of empowerment. He reminds us that we are not victims of circumstance, but rather the creators of our own reality.
That's powerful stuff.
And he leaves us with this really thought-provoking question. If your assumptions create your reality, what assumptions are you holding on to that might be limiting your experiences? It's like a call to action, to really examine our beliefs and challenge those limitations that we've placed on ourselves.
And Out of This World is a book that really stays with you. It encourages you to question everything, to explore the depths of your own consciousness, and to embrace the power of your imagination to change your world.
It reminds us that we have the power to create a life that truly reflects our deepest desires. And it's not always easy, but it's worth it.
Absolutely.
So to all our listeners out there, what assumptions are you ready to let go of? What reality are you ready to create? Because the power is in your hands, and the journey starts within.
Keep exploring, keep dreaming, and keep diving deep.
And until next time, farewell, fellow explorers.